The Athletic reports this will likely be Stewart-Haas Racing's final year with Ford, and it's never too early to start looking at the points, at least in my opinion. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Happy Friday. Y'all remember that live Daytona show Brendan Poole and I did a couple weeks ago? Well, good news. NASCAR said bring it back and double it. Next weekend at Phoenix Raceway, Brendan Poole and I will be doing 2 different live shows. You can come see us at the NASCAR Experience stage on Friday at 3 p.m. and on Saturday at 12:30, just before the Xfinity Series race goes green. Great chance to meet up with fans, talk a little racing ahead of an action-packed Phoenix Raceway weekend. So again, that's 1 week from today. If you're gonna be at Phoenix, hope to see you there at the NASCAR Experience stage. That's the one outside the track. That's not inside the infield experience. No, it's out by the main grandstands, just to clarify. Stewart-Haas Racing and Ford are likely to part ways at the end of 2024. This is according to The Athletic's Jordan Bianchi. I'll put a link to the full column down in the description below. Highly encourage you to check it out. Subscribe to The Athletic. In this piece, Bianchi writes, indications continue to point towards SHR and Ford parting at the end of the 2024 season. This is the final year of Stewart-Haas's current contract with Ford, and as we learned just a couple weeks ago, Ford has promoted Front Row Motorsports. Front Row is now a Tier 1 key partner Ford NASCAR Cup Series team. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that while it's not official yet that Stewart-Haas will be leaving Ford, all recent news seems to be pointing that direction. If you'll allow me to go full-on fan for a few moments here, the show is called Out of the Groove for a reason. I've got no inside source on this, but from an outsider's perspective, it feels like this conflict between Tony Stewart, Stewart-Haas, and Ford goes back to 2020, when Stewart-Haas Racing lost out on the Kyle Larson sweepstakes. Kyle Larson ultimately signed with Hendrick Motorsports. The rest, as we know, is history. His first year with Hendrick, he wins 10 races, wins the Cup Series championship. And if you'll remember, in 2021, Tony Stewart, I think, took to like an Instagram comment maybe, and said that he wanted to pursue Kyle Larson, but Ford wouldn't let him. Again, from an outsider's perspective, I feel like that was the first crack in Ford and SHR's relationship. Think about it. 2020, Stewart-Haas was formidable. Kevin Harvick won 9 races, was a championship contender. 2021, the team fell back down to earth. 2022, 2023, SHR has largely struggled ever since. Nothing is for sure at this point, of course, but if Stewart-Haas Racing in fact does leave Ford at the end of this year, one, that could be a small setback for Ford's development system. There's not a lot of Fords in the Xfinity Series to begin with. Losing out on 2 fast Stewart-Haas Mustangs, it's going to hurt. Going to have to shuffle some things around for sure. But from Stewart-Haas Racing's perspective, I actually welcome the change in many ways. I may be a Stewart-Haas doubter, but I'm not a hater. I'm rooting for them to improve. It certainly looks like their best years with Ford are behind them, so I welcome the manufacturer switch, although I am concerned that Stewart-Haas Racing may lose their key partner status. For what it's worth, right now, Stewart-Haas is still a key Ford partner. If they move to Chevy or they move to Toyota, they may not be a key partner anymore. Those rosters, those lineups are largely filled out. I know what some of y'all are screaming at me. What about Honda? The big news, the rumors this past week. Honda may very well join the NASCAR Cup Series in the next 2 or 3 years, but I think it's nearly impossible that we see a Honda on track next year. For that to be the case, they would have had to send their body and engine approvals to NASCAR likely many months ago. I don't think that's happened. I could be wrong, but if that has happened, boy, they've done a damn good job keeping it quiet. The industry is not usually this good at keeping a secret. So Honda may be down the line, sure, but I don't think that will be the case for next year at least. So that does concern me. You'd like to stay a key partner team. It's very hard to win a Cup Series championship. It's hard to even make the playoffs if you don't have that kind of support from a manufacturer. But I don't hate the idea of major sweeping changes. And remember, Stewart-Haas Racing wasn't always a Ford team. Before they joined Ford, Stewart-Haas won 2 Cup Series championships with Chevrolet, Stewart in 2011, Kevin Harvick in 2014. This will be a very interesting story to follow the rest of this year. What happens to their charters? Once their deal with Ford is up, they likely won't be obligated to hold on to all 4 charters. They could sell 1 or 2. Not saying they will, but they could. And if they do, are the drivers safe? I feel like Chase Briscoe is probably the most safe Stewart-Haas Racing driver. He signed a multi-year extension last year. He's the only driver on SHR's current Cup Series roster who has a Cup Series win. Ryan Preece, Noah Gragson, Josh Berry are all very new, and he'll bring some sponsorship to the table, but it may not necessarily be enough for the team to turn down a $50-60 million offer for one of their charters. Or more. Shoot, who knows what charters will go for the next time one gets sold. Very interesting story to follow, but you heard it from The Athletic. Sounds likely that Stewart-Haas Racing and Ford will part ways at the end of this year. Changing the subject a bit, we're only 2 races into the NASCAR Cup Series regular season, but in my opinion, it's never too early to start looking at points. Some drivers have gotten off to red-hot starts, like Austin Cindric, who struggled most of last year, is currently tied for second in the regular season standings, only 1 point out of the lead. Bubba Wallace, who barely snuck into the playoffs, grabbed that 16th spot in the final regular season race. He's 4th in points. Corey LaJoie is 4th in points with the newly revamped Spire. Again, I know we're only 2 races into the year, and they've been 2 drafting track super speedway style races at that, but it's never too early to look at points, in my opinion. You look at the 16 drivers who made the playoffs last year, most all of them got off to pretty hot starts. There were only a few notable exceptions. Now, Tyler Reddick, this time last year, was 38th in points, but he went on to win at COTA just a few weeks later. It's pretty crazy to think that William Byron was 29th in points this time a year ago. He went on to win both the 3rd and 4th races of the season and almost won the regular season championship. Turned things around pretty quick. Bubba Wallace, this time a year ago, was 26th in points. He rebounded. And Kyle Larson, another driver who made it to the championship 4 at year's end, was 24th in points after just 2 races. So it's not impossible to come back from an early points deficit, but it is worth noting some of the big names who are in an early hole to start the 2024 season. I threw together this quick list right here. Tyler Reddick is 24th in points, 16 points behind Christopher Bell, who currently is holding on to the 16th and final playoff spot. Obviously, that line is going to change quite a bit throughout the year as we get more winners, but Reddick right now is 16 points out, P24. Josh Berry, driving the Stewart-Haas number 4, is 27 points out, 29th in points. Todd Gilliland, Joey Logano, Austin Dillon, Brad Keselowski, then of course 2 who were penalized this week, Ryan Preece, Noah Gragson, minus 53. Already a massive hole he's got to try and dig himself out of. I just wanted to highlight a few names right here, some surprising names that I know it's early, I am a bit concerned with at this point in the year. Tyler Reddick, 24th in points, minus 16, not worried in the slightest. Josh Berry, as well as his 2 Stewart-Haas teammates down here, yeah, I'm a bit concerned because I don't know what to expect from SHR this year. We've only seen them at drafting tracks, and they've looked okay, but unfortunately penalties have put half the team in a huge points hole. Las Vegas this weekend will tell us a lot. Phoenix next weekend will tell us even more. Remember, 1 year ago at Phoenix, Kevin Harvick in a Stewart-Haas Ford arguably had the best car in the field, certainly on the long run. Martinsville coming up in a few weeks. Stewart-Haas will likely have chances to win or to make up points, but they've got to get started soon considering the hole they find themselves in. I want to mention Todd Gilliland and Joey Logano. Todd Gilliland, get this, has led more laps than anyone else in the Cup Series so far this year. He is your NASCAR Cup Series laps leader. Todd Gilliland, hey, congratulations. That new Penske Alliance and Ford partnership really paying dividends for Front Row early this year. At least from a speed perspective. Unfortunately, from a points perspective, Todd Gilliland is in a hole. That hurts. It really does, because while he's got that Penske Alliance, do we know what that's worth just yet? The new Ford Mustang Dark Horse, how will that new car perform at the intermediates like Las Vegas this weekend? Todd Gilliland is still a very young, relatively inexperienced driver. I fear this is too big of a points hole for him to dig himself out of. I look at Todd Gilliland, honestly, as being in a must-win scenario at this point in the year. That's probably how the team felt coming into this season. Shoot, Michael McDowell had to win his way into the playoffs late last summer. The speed these last 2 weeks has been encouraging, but we still have to see it at intermediates, and I'm not sure I'm convinced just yet. Good luck, though, to Todd Gilliland. I'm rooting for him. He's been a fun story to follow these first few weeks. I gotta talk about Joey Logano. Maybe y'all think I'm crazy, but I'm a little worried. 29 points out of the playoffs. He's 31st in points. Again, I read you that list. Only one driver, 30th or worse in points last year at this point in the season, went on to make the playoffs. It was Tyler Reddick. Does Joey Logano have it in him? He's a two-time Cup Series champion, yes, but the last few years, Joey Logano has been hit or miss. 2021, he got one win on the year, and it was at kind of a weird track. It was the inaugural Bristol Dirt Race. But then 2022, Joey Logano was red hot. He started the year off with a win at the Coliseum, went on to win 4 more races and won the championship, only to kind of struggle in 2023. Again, last year, Logano only won 1 race, and it was a super speedway. He was eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, so it's kind of all or nothing with Logano these past few years. He led a bunch of laps at Daytona and Atlanta these past couple of weeks, but 31st in points, wrecking 2 weeks in a row at 2 of his better styles of racetrack. That does have me a little bit concerned. And not to sound like a Debbie Downer, but Brad Keselowski tied for 33rd in points, 31 points out. That worries me. Brad Keselowski is riding a 100 race winless streak. Now, the speed RFK showed last year, I think, has many of us confident that the 6 will find his way back to victory lane sooner rather than later. But as we saw last year, nothing is guaranteed. And what has me most concerned with Brad Keselowski is that he crashed at both super speedway races to begin the year. I understand that super speedway racing can be fluky, it can be a bit random. It didn't look random for Brad Keselowski last year. Last season, Brad finished 2nd and 6th at Atlanta. He was 5th at Talladega during the regular season, and he was 2nd in the regular season finale at Daytona. You could all but pencil in Brad Keselowski for a top 5 finish at super speedways last year. He finished 33rd 2 weeks ago and 33rd 1 week ago. I didn't see the same RFK speed at Daytona or Atlanta that we've gotten used to seeing the past couple of years. Those are just drafting tracks. We'll see what they've got at the intermediate starting this week, but that's why I'm concerned. I'm sure most folks expect Tyler Reddick to make the playoffs, but beyond him, which of these drivers do you think has the best shot of making the NASCAR playoffs, and which of these drivers do you think will miss out? I would not be shocked if Logano or Keselowski miss the playoffs at year's end. Again, remember, last season, only one driver, 30th or worse in points 2 weeks into the year, made the playoffs. It's never too early to at least glance at the points, but let me know if you agree down in the comment section below. Do you think I'm being way too overdramatic? Maybe. But hey, I can't help it. Points are a premium in the NASCAR Cup Series these days. Thanks for watching, y'all. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. We talk NASCAR all day, every week, all throughout the year. And a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters as well. Truck Series race tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, I believe, on FS1. Triple header at Las Vegas. I will see you Sunday night after the Pennzoil 400. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Have a wonderful weekend.